Hello and welcome to Racing Incident, a Formula One and sometimes other motorsport podcast in an American accent. I'm Anna, and joining me again, she's back.
Hi.
Is the
She's back.
lovely, yeah, she's back.
Like the Terminator.
You're like what would be like the anti-Terminator, like the nice, kind, caring.
After watching both, I feel like he was a nice, kind, caring character. It just took a while to get that arc.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that you've recently...
Spoiler, he sacrifices himself at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean, like, in general, yes, he's a special kind... Yeah. He's a different kind of Terminator.
He's
but I mean, like, all the
nurturing,
other ones, he's, You're
all
like
back,
you'd be like if I could build a bunch of Tashas, I would totally do it. I would like send them to people who need like comforting or someone to talk to.
That's very sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, like the Build-A-Bear.
Exactly.
Build a Tasha.
Exactly. Yeah. Only those Build-A-Bears can't talk or do anything. You'd be way better.
But they are nice to cuddle. I'm not gonna lie. They're nice to cuddle.
Sure. Yeah, no, I still have I have like a teddy bear that because I like to. A lot of people I think like to cuddle something when they sleep.
Yeah, it's comfortable.
That's a normal. Yeah, people will have like those body pillows, or they'll just have an extra pillow that they do that with. I still have a teddy bear from when I was 8, so that's
That's sweet.
he's
falling apart.
Well, no, he's okay actually. Though he used to be white, and he's sort of not anymore.
Okay.
Okay, this is too much information. Okay. Well, I'm so glad you're back, Tasha. I missed you last week, even though it was a really
That was a good episode last week, though.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope people liked it. I know it wasn't about F1, although it sort of was a little bit also.
It's still interesting to hear about IndyCar and like I didn't know all the fractures about the split, and
I know
there's just a lot going on.
I don't think most people know. I think most people are. I mean, when you talk to even people who are probably IndyCar fans who know a lot about everyone knows about the split, but I don't think people realize that just the way he laid it out, that really there were like 3 different splits kind of in a way, and each one like led to the next.
Right.
And it was really just a progression of things falling apart. So anyway, as usual, guys, don't forget to subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you might be listening to. Subscribe on YouTube. Give us a comment, like, and review if you're watching on there. And of course, remember to rate and review us. If you can, write a review on Apple Podcasts. I think that's really like one of the only platforms I know about. One of the only platforms I know about that allows you to actually write a review. And in fact, we got this really sweet review recently that I wanted to read because it was so nice. And so this was on Apple Podcasts again, because you can like actually write a whole thing, not just give a number of stars. Of course, she gave us 5 stars as well. Well, actually, I don't know if I have a suspicion that I know who it is. That's why I'm saying she. So, but I'm not 100% sure. So I don't know. But she wrote, "Love it. I've been following F1 since 2005 when Schumacher and Barrichello were at Ferrari. And as an American female Formula One fan working in automotive, I love fresh takes like Racing Incident and welcome new and diverse fans to the sport. Anna calls it like she sees it, which I love. I feel like Tasha learned more about racing in 2 years than I did in almost 20. Wow. These ladies know what they're talking about and don't take themselves too seriously like some stuffy racing commentators and content creators. I almost peed myself laughing at the latest episode. I think that was the one with James. So James, if you're listening, James, cool. Good for you. This is a great community to be a part of, no matter when or why you discovered F1.
Yay, that's awesome.
That was really sweet. Thank you so much. I mean, I just want to say, someone who's been watching since 2005 said we know what we're talking about.
That makes me happy. I'm like, wow, I actually
Yeah.
absorbed enough things
Yeah.
to like that's what I really have been enjoying about Formula One personally is the deep dives I've been doing, but like also being able to formulate my own like opinions based off of what I'm
Yes.
reading. I think it's
Yeah.
really easy to like, you know, see what everybody's saying and hear what everybody's saying and just like agree with that. Um
Totally.
versus like coming up with your own. And yes, I mean, I think some of my opinions mirror what's being said, but like I
Sure.
very much pride myself on being like, I figured it out. Like I'll go to Christopher all the time and be like, I think this da 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 da. And like, he's just to hear a 2-hour tirade of me going on and on about Formula One stuff. Bless him. But yeah, so I really appreciate that because I absolutely have been like just super obsessed with like learning everything and like figuring out
Yeah.
what I want to say. So
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for that review. And if
thank
you
you.
want to be as amazing as this person, please write us a lovely review. Or it can even be much
Yeah.
shorter too. And we'd still be
Haiku
happy
would
to
be
read it out.
nice. Write us a
Yeah.
poem. Yeah.
Haiku. Okay, your standards are too high.
Right.
Your standards are
We
too
never
high.
know.
Okay, true.
There
True.
might be
Sure.
some artistes listening.
Okay. If you do that, I mean, we'll definitely read it. Let's be real. Probably going to read
Yeah.
anything that's like positive and nice.
Yeah.
So please do write us
Thank you.
something. Oh, and yeah, so that was really awesome. I mean, I really felt heartened by the fact, again, that someone who's been watching since 2005.
Yeah.
Because even though we don't believe in gatekeeping and we think it's okay for someone to be doing a podcast or anything else they like, any kind of
Yeah.
content they want to create, even if they're a very new fan,
Right.
you do still feel that like kind of worry and pressure. At least I do.
Mhm.
Um, even though I don't believe in that that
Yeah.
people are going to be like, well, what do you know? And you
Right.
know, so that was nice.
I block them out. I'm like, everybody else gets to be uninformed and stupid on the internet. Like I'm at least
True.
coming from a place where I'm being, I'm trying. But I
I
think
mean,
we talked
yeah, we're
about
like
this. Like,
honest
there's so
about
many
it.
people on the internet who like have no idea what they're talking about
Yes.
and just say whatever they want, whether they know what
Mhm.
they are talking about or not. So I feel like as long as I'm trying, it's like learning a language. I think one of the
Yeah.
big barriers for people is like, and I'm guilty of this because I have been learning French for like 15 years. And my biggest issue is that I never want to like speak it conversationally, but that's like the
Right.
way that you learn. And it's that like fear of being
Mhm.
corrected or fear of being
Yes.
wrong that stops you from like having that full immersion. Whereas like now with
Totally.
F1, I'm like, no, I'm just, if I'm wrong or somebody doesn't agree with my take on something, why do I care? Like
Yeah.
my
And more
opinion.
often than not, they'll let you know. So it's
Exactly.
yeah.
So it's like, great. If you think I got this detail wrong, send me the link. I'll read it or watch the video on it,
Yeah.
and like I'll
Yeah.
adjust my thought if
I
the
think
facts
I
support it. But yeah,
I think it's so much better, to be, and I see this kind of behavior sometimes. I didn't mean to go on this tangent, but since we're here, I see this behavior a lot from people who even, I mean, because there are people online on Twitter, on other places, who actually work in F1
hmm
and who work in other adjacent things, or maybe work for a
hmm
sponsor or whatever. You see people out there who um, sometimes, they have very unpleasant negative reactions to when an
hmm
average fan says something, and because they have an insider perspective and more knowledge and more
right,
whatever, that they're like, oh, and but I again, I doubt anyone like that's probably listening, but if you are,
yeah,
you have two choices in that situation. You can have that kind of response where,
yeah,
like, oh, you stupid ignorant, you know mere fan who doesn't know how things work and whatever.
right,
Or you can actually tell people, give them the information you wish they had, to have had what would have been a more informed take, or would have been a more,
right,
correct, like, give them the information,
right,
and then they'll know, and then they won't have this mistaken viewpoint or whatever you felt was a incorrect characterization of something. But that usually doesn't happen, unfortunately.
yeah.
So anyway, okay. Um okay, we're gonna do some just like quick news hit things, and then we'll get into more meaty subjects. But the quick news things, and of course, I really did want to mention of course, the sad news of the 18-year-old racer, Dilano Van T. Hoff. I don't know, I'm sorry if that's not how you say his name, who died in an accident just this weekend at Spa, in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine Freca, as most people would know it as Freca. Devastating,
Yeah, it's
devastating
really
news,
sad.
honestly. It's so sad. There's like his girlfriend's been posting stuff on Instagram
Yeah.
too, which is it just
It's very heartbreaking. The 18 is too young for anything, but to
yeah,
die of something like an accident like that is I just feel like that has to be like just crushing. And yeah, I just really feel for like his family and his friends and like all of
yeah,
his, people who have been racing with him who, they're
yeah.
all friends and coming up together. So yeah.
I can't even
Mm.
imagine what it's like. Like all I can think about too are like the people that, the cars that like hit him, the people, the drivers who,
Right.
they're because he was the only fatality. I
Hmm.
don't even know because I haven't really checked for information on what injuries or things but he was the only one that died, and so I can't even imagine what it's like being
Yeah.
knowing that you
You can
basically
call it like
contributed.
survivor's guilt. Like you
Exactly.
survived something. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, it's a whole I mean, they're gonna need probably some help, and I hope that they get it because
Hmm.
that's gotta be really tough, and, it's so if people don't know, it was, so this is, again, another death of a young racer at Spa, of course, um, there was Antoine Hubert who died there in 2019. So this was very recent also. And for me too, like this was the first motorsport death that I've really experienced as a solid,
Hmm.
fan. And it was rough for me. Like I guess I've understood now what other people have talked about when they've talked about um, a death that they were not there for, but like, that they were
Right.
really
Learn about in
involved in
real
the sport.
time.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, and how devastating it was. And I remember always thinking that like, oh, I'm sure it's sad and you feel bad, but it's like how bad can it really be? But I really felt it. I was
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
because
I don't follow that series, I
right.
just only follow Formula One at the moment.
Yeah.
So, but still, it's just very devastating to hear that anybody's dying in an accident. Especially with, I don't know if they have the same level of safety on those cars. I mean, I'm not sure what's going on.
It's
Um,
I mean they
but
don't
yeah.
is the answer first of all. Like
Mm.
outside F1, um they're outside F1, all the junior categories are spec cars. Now they all have the halo, they all have there's some of course, there's some,
Right.
but they're smaller, they're lighter, they don't have the and crucially
Hmm.
junior drivers are less experienced, less I mean they're
Right.
coming up. They're still, there and
Right.
it's so a lot of people feel like this race should have never even been run because the conditions it was raining and it was pretty bad and it
No
was
visibility.
yeah like people I saw people posting like side by side like in 2021 Spa
Mm.
when F1 didn't race, as people might remember, they did 2 laps behind the safety car and got half
Right.
points. And F1 drivers who are the most
Right.
experienced, the most they were like we're not racing here. But then
Yeah.
they just throw these young kids to the wolves, like who someone has to be held accountable for this.
I think so
For
too. I mean, this is the FIA also oversees this
yes,
series
they
as well.
do, they do,
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. To me, I just feel like, and I felt like this for a long time. We had this happen like last year at Suzuka with Pierre with the truck on
right,
track.
right,
During the rain, same thing. And many instances, like more instances than you would like to even think about, given the fact that we haven't been here for that long watching the sport, but
yeah,
we've seen them race in all kinds of unsavory, unsafe conditions. And
yeah,
I just feel like this whole thing about it feels like the FIA and maybe Formula One also sees these drivers as like disposable, like
yes,
that they're all
yes,
racing in a sim And
Yeah.
like, no matter what quirky shit we throw at them, they're going to come home safe at the end of the day. And like, that's just like not the case. They
Yeah.
can obviously experience death or like severe injuries. And to me, I just feel like the FIA really just like plays too much with these people's lives. And it is very like devastating to see something
Yeah.
could have been that could have been prevented just by being, looking at the weather and being like, this is not safe. But
Yeah.
as usual, we are putting money and profits over people, and this is the outcome. And it's like, it does become, I look at it and as a fan, but I'm like, when do the drivers, like, do they have any reunion that they can create, or, is there ways that they can protest?
No, I mean, it's unfortunately in the junior
It's,
categories, I don't think there's anything. I mean, the
yeah.
Formula One drivers, as a lot of people might know, there's the Grand Prix Drivers Association,
Hmm.
which is George Russell is like the,
The
of
face
course
of,
he is.
yes, the president. He's like the class president.
Example. I mean, he obviously has class president energy, like
Yeah.
very clearly, right? So he's
Yeah.
but that's not. First of all, it's not a real union. Well, because I guess the thinking is like these are not
Yeah.
people that need unions in the way the work. But it is.
Right.
It's sort of in that
You're
vein.
supposed to have
And
like
so yeah, they do have.
representation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have. That's right. Absolutely. In the junior categories, to my knowledge, there's not anything like that
Yeah.
because you're not, and that's where actually you might need something like that. But then at
Yeah.
the same time, these are teenagers. This young man was 18, but there are people racing already in cars who
Yeah.
might be 17, 16, 15.
Yeah. They're
They're
young
okay, so they're extremely young.
children.
They can't that you know People need to be looking out for them.
Yeah.
They can't be looking out for themselves at that age yet, because
Yeah.
their instinct is to race. They're racing drivers. Like
Right.
you couldn't have had you wouldn't if you had. I mean, for example, I don't know for sure. I don't know for 1,000%. But if you had sat down all these Freca drivers before this race and been like, "Do you guys think it's safe to race?" They might have been like, "Yeah, I want to race."
Yeah.
But you can't. These are children
Their
in some
brains are not fully
cases.
developed. We
Yeah,
cannot
and
let
even
them
at
make
18, they're
decisions
not
like this. Yes.
exactly. They're not. I mean, in
Yeah.
case people don't know, it's like what is it? It's like you're up until like even
Like
25 or
30s,
there
I
it's
think,
like
is when you're
yeah, that's right.
front.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It's
It can be
late.
even that yeah,
Hmm.
but definitely like under
Yeah.
25 and people are, not fully, which
Yeah.
describes, some of the F1 drivers. But
Absolutely.
and definitely, and again,
Yeah.
racing drivers are racing drivers. Like they're not going to it's not like, think about a regular person in the rain. When you drive on the road, you might like slow down, they don't that's not how racing drivers are.
And
That's
then,
just not
to me it's like also crazy too, thinking the fact that these cars don't have brake lights. There's none of those normal, like you said, in a car,
yeah.
in a normal car, and those
Yeah.
safety features that you can like throw on your hazards in case, to
Yeah.
warn people
No.
behind you or brake.
No.
So I don't know, it's just like very sad because it's just preventable. It
It's
makes
just
me irritated
preventable.
because
Yeah.
I personally am tired of watching races where um drivers are put in a position where, like, I guess I don't want to see somebody die on live TV. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, hearing about
No.
it
Yeah.
secondhand is bad enough, but like
Right.
I feel like the FIA, we're seeing who came through the pit lane and almost hit a bunch of people. Was Alex.
Oh, that was
Was it
you mean when
Alex
it
or
was
was
the
it in the Alpine?
photographers?
Esteban. It was
It was
the
Esteban.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Through
So,
no fault of his own.
no fault
That
of his
was
own, but
yeah.
the marshals were coming on to close the pit
Yes.
lane, and they
Yeah.
almost got hit. And so
Right.
it's like at a certain point we're going to run out of luck. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, they're able to do all of these things or drop the ball because up until certain points, you know, nothing bad enough has happened.
Yeah.
But it does come down to a point. I was like, as a fan, because I feel like the stakes are very high for them
Yeah.
and their life is very fragile. I don't think it's fair to ask them to do these things. And yes, they're drivers, and yes, they, you know, whether or not they can drive in the rain is a whole different conversation. But it's just like, at some point, maybe we just cancel races and refund people their money if that's what it comes
Yeah.
down to. Because if that means that other people can, they can live to see another day, that's more important than having something to put on
Yeah.
TV. That's not even going to be entertaining because
Right. I
it's
mean,
not
I
real.
think this is very typical of what you see in
Yeah.
lots of other sports, where the people who are at the top, who are the
Yeah.
professionals, who are the ones, at the pinnacle of whatever sport it is,
Hmm.
those people are very protected and very, I mean, again, Spa 2021 didn't
Hmm.
happen because they were like, this is unsafe.
Right.
When people I mean, there are literally, if you go, you can probably find it on, people posted like side by side shots of what Spa
Mhm.
2021 looked like and what this race looked like. They look the same.
Yeah.
They look the same. And why the experienced drivers who maybe could actually have raced in that weather without somebody dying, presumably,
Yeah.
didn't race. But these young kids who are much less experienced and who are in more hazardous cars and
Yeah.
whatever are racing. Why? And again, and I do have to mention that again. So the topic came up, of course, of Spa and Eau Rouge and Réunion. That complex is,
Mhm.
that's where Antoine Hubert died. Even though this accident happened on a straight, it was not too long after Eau Rouge. I mean, it's a factor. There's
Mhm.
people, and there are still people saying,
Mhm.
like, so the F1 drivers were asked in the press conference about it too, and I don't remember what everyone said, but I do remember that Max was like, it's not fair to blame the circuit. And even I remember Lewis in the past being like, oh, I hope they don't change it too much because Rouge around, they're so iconic, they're so.
Mhm.
But at a certain point, I don't care how iconic something is. If we're going to save lives, like in my opinion, it needed to happen in 2019 after
Mhm.
what happened to Antoine Hubert. Like, that's the other thing, that it
Yeah.
boggles the mind that things happen. And then you're like as an example, I mean, this is not remotely similar, but when there's a fatal, accident on an airplane, when an airplane goes down or something
Mhm.
happens to, there's any kind of
An
accident, no one even has
investigation,
to
yeah.
die. No one even has to die when there's an accident. Now, every country has their own federal aviation administration, but I'm sure it's somewhat similar. But I'm most familiar with the U.S., of course.
Yeah.
They will do such an investigation to be like, how did this happen? What
Mhm.
exactly happened? How can we prevent this exact thing from happening in the future?
Yeah.
They try to do everything possible to, and that is why air travel is so safe, because of the fact that there's so much is put into when something goes wrong, that,
Right.
like, we have to prevent this exact thing from happening in the future.
Yeah.
We have to put in whatever we have to do, whatever we have to change, whatever we have to. This is literally, and this is the complete absence of this
Right.
in motorsport, and
It's
it's
the
devastating.
it's very wild to watch. And I say this as somebody who, like, again, different sport, not necessarily the same comparison, but, like, going back to canceling things. Wimbledon is on. Wimbledon is a
Hmm.
tennis tournament that takes
Right.
place in the United Kingdom. And we know how their weather is. It's not great. And so in the
Yeah.
summer, it rains a lot. And they've made some changes in the recent years to be able to close some of the courts, like have an electric
Oh,
kind
right,
of roof
right.
that comes over the stadium so that
Cool.
they can continue matches.
Yeah.
But in many years prior, if it rained, they had to cancel. So I would be watching ESPN for hours waiting to see, because this is before
Right.
Twitter. So you have to watch to see when they would come
In the
back onto
olden
the court,
days.
when in the back in the day,
Yeah.
so it's like, or they'd cancel the session for the day. So it's like, as a sport, you can't be afraid to, like, be like, yeah, well, it's not possible to run this session today because of the weather. Like, it is weather. We are human beings. We're susceptible to whatever the weather is. We got to
Yeah.
make those adjustments. But I've been witness to sports that are very much like at the mercy of the elements, having to cancel things or having to postpone things
Mhm.
until it was safe. Like,
Mhm.
you can't
Yep.
have people racing in condition, like, it looked like a thick fog.
Yeah.
I couldn't
I
even drive my, like, back roads where I live. Like, there's deer, we've got fog lights, we've got
right.
really bright lights, and, like, again, these cars don't have any lights on them in the front or on the back. So it's like,
It's
yeah, it's bound to happen that, you have cars crashing into each other in the conditions like this.
There's,
So,
like, some lights, but they're not
yeah.
for that. They're not for
No, they're for
safety.
yeah.
And even if they were, the visibility is, like, however many
Yeah.
feet or I don't know what it is, but when you're
Mhm.
going at whatever speeds they're going at, that is nil. That
And you
is
can't even
nothing.
react.
There's no,
Like,
no, you
yeah.
can't. You can't. You can't. And that's, I mean, that's what's tragic too. Again, you have it. One person dies, but you have
Mhm.
damaged the lives of so many people. Again, the other
Absolutely.
drivers involved, his family and friends,
Mhm.
so many people. And it's just, again, it's when it could have been, because motorsport is dangerous. Everyone knows that. But when
Inherently,
it could have been
yes.
prevented, it's, and I was really glad to actually hear on the Races podcast, Scott Mitchell-Malm, who's one of my
Mhm.
favorite commentators and reporters who covers motorsport. Well, he specifically covers F1, but
Mhm.
he's one of my favorites because he always tells these types of things like it is. And on their most recent podcast, they of course talked about it, and he was like, "It is an insult to Antoine Hubert,
Mhm.
to his memory." And that's what I remember. I remember Pierre actually used that exact same wording when he
Yeah.
talked in Suzuka when they were in the rain and the
Yeah.
tractor.
Mhm.
He was like, "This is an insult to him and his family, and for us to be doing something like this that could have caused someone else to die again. Luckily, no one
Mhm.
did then, but this is." And I agree, it is an insult to him and his memory and to everyone that suffered from his death to have this
Mhm.
happen again to another young driver
Yeah.
when it could have been prevented. Like it's just it's I so when I actually saw I didn't see what every other driver thought, but I actually was actually really I don't really necessarily have like positive or negative feelings towards Lance Stroll normally. I don't
Mhm.
really care, but Lance is actually like he has these moments where he comes
Mhm.
out and he says
Yep.
that and often it might be because he's unfireable. He's not, it could be because of that. I think the cynical
Yeah.
take would be that that's the reason that but he also doesn't, he's not vocal or outspoken really in general. But then
Right.
when certain time, like he was, I would say one of the more, when after Abu Dhabi 2021, like he was very
Yes.
like,
Uh-huh.
this was,
This is
there were
not right.
other
Yeah.
people who were too, of course. But I remember being surprised about him being one
Yeah.
of them because I was kind of like, oh, because usually, he's very like, he doesn't seem to.
Yeah, Lance, I mean, yeah, Lance definitely he surprised me as well because it's like um, at least when I started watching it, like he wasn't somebody that I paid much attention to, I think. So I
Right.
never really knew what he thought about anything. And so
Mhm.
yeah, since Abu Dhabi, it has become like a really apparent that he's not afraid to speak up. I mean, for like you said, whatever reason that may
Yeah.
be, he typically tends to just use his common sense and like speak to that. And so I really appreciate that he doesn't like mince words or, try to like sugarcoat how he says it. It's not like cryptic.
Yeah.
He just straight up will say something's not right. And so, and then also often, like, especially in this instance, like he seems genuinely just upset. I
Yes.
think,
Yeah. I mean,
he's
I was
when what,
very,
yeah.
very impressed that he was, he very strongly was like, uh, I mean, something should be done. There
Hmm.
again, as compared to some other drivers who are like, it's not fair to blame the circuit. Well, when something keeps happening at a certain circuit more than
Yeah.
once, and they said you have to ask yourself, again, is it really worth other people losing their lives to preserve this iconic heritage complex of corners? I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
don't think so. There's nothing worth that. There's
Yeah.
nothing, and yeah, and Lance was like, yeah, he said that they risk their lives every time they drive. That I was like, okay, tell it like it is, Lance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just I think something and I hope something will be done. So
Yeah.
we'll update you guys if we and any further information about that. Just wanted to quickly say that US TV numbers for F1 are actually still strong, FYI, for everyone, despite lackluster season. I think a lot of people are saying a lot of things about the fact that, oh, all these Drive to Survive fans are going to stop watching because this is not as exciting as
Yeah.
2021 or other, but I'm like, that doesn't seem to
Never
be the case.
underestimate. Yeah. Don't
Again, this is
underestimate
for the
people.
US. I don't know what worldwide or what in different
Yeah.
countries, but for the US, they're still moving up. It's not like astronomical, but they are still going up, and it's
Yeah.
higher this year than it was last year, and arguably this year is way less competitive and worse. So
Right.
um, I'm again here to remind everyone. We are again here to remind everyone that people don't just watch Formula One or other motorsports too, I would say, but
Mhm.
especially Formula One for only the racing. Okay. There's plenty of other things that people have an interest in. And even if you
Right.
haven't, you obviously, I'm talking about people who watch the races. But
Right.
even everybody that watches the races is interested in a lot of other things, and there's plenty of things going on elsewhere in the field. Yeah, we know who's going to win, but like there's a lot of other interesting things going on.
He's you down. It's a blast. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. It's, I mean, there's, and especially from like P7 down, or like,
Oh yeah.
there's like
Yeah.
so much happening, and it's,
Yeah.
I mean, this weekend, perfect example
Mm-hmm.
in Austria.
I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, so but just also really quick, people may have heard about this, but just in case you haven't, uh, Bridgestone has put in a bid to become F1's tire supplier. So it's still unknown what's going to happen. I mean, presumably F1 will stick with Pirelli since they've been there for a while. Bridgestone has supplied Formula One in the past at some
Uh
point. Of
huh.
course, there was a period where it was like tire wars. There were a bunch of different tire suppliers, and of course a lot of people are like, yeah, tire war, let's have that again,
Yeah.
because
Give us something fun to watch.
right, a lot of people are like very right, the season being what it is. A lot of people are like, bring back tire wars, bring
Shake it
back
up. Yeah.
refueling, bring
Yeah.
back this, bring back that, like, how can we make it more interesting, and there's I think some of those takes are not necessarily rooted in reality, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, the tire thing, it's not vastly exciting, but it is interesting, and it'll be interesting to
Yeah.
see. Basically, F1 will. I mean, like whoever's going to give them the most money, and who's gonna is basically who they'll pick probably. So
Right.
it'll be interesting to see,
Yeah.
I guess, because Pirelli now has been for, I don't know how many years it is, but it's been a number of years
Yeah. I was gonna
that
say it's
they've
been quite a
been.
while.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see what happens there. And then I don't know. These are like there are rumors that Danny Ric might race for AlphaTauri
Oh
if
Lord.
Nick DeVries gets kicked out of there. I feel like, I mean, when I first heard that, I remember thinking, can you imagine? Can you imagine you come up as a Red Bull driver in the junior team, then you drive for the main team, you become a,
Mm-hmm.
multiple race winner, you're considered this, and then 4 years later, or whatever, however long it's been, you go back to the junior team. Like, it, I don't think I'd be able to do it. I'd
My
be,
pride would not let me do that.
no, same,
But
same,
maybe that's
no.
what Danny Ric is good at, is just being shameless.
I
I
think
could
so.
never. I would be like, there's no way. I mean, besides the fact that I do think it should go to a junior driver since that's the whole point of the seat,
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
just really don't understand why he wants to be a part of Red Bull, like, given the situation. He's never gonna be a number one driver there. I don't, unless he's fully just been like, look, I just want to drive and I don't care that I'm
I
definitely
think
gonna be treated
so. I
worse on
think
the team as a second
he's
driver. I'm not sure.
I think he's just, it's like
Yeah.
everything else with Danny, it's vibes. Like I think it's just like, I mean, he's happy, like even now when he's having to do all the funny videos and the things and whatever, like he's I don't think I don't think he minds. Like he's Red Bull feels like home to him because he was there for so many,
Stockholm
and in
syndrome,
the family.
probably.
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's I mean, it's, to me it's sad because look at like someone like Alex Albon, for example,
Yeah.
who has gotten out of the clutches of that organization
Yeah.
and
And
is
look how he's
living his
thriving.
best life.
Look how he's thriving.
I mean,
Why doesn't
Williams
Daniel
is
want this for
like,
himself?
yeah, they're gonna, I mean,
Dream
but
big,
yeah,
Daniel Ricciardo. Come on, man.
Danny's like the guy who, like, like those people you meet who you knew in high school and mentally they're
Mhm.
still in
And
high
they peaked
school.
in high school, yeah.
Yeah, they like
Yeah.
that's Danny with Red Bull. Like Red Bull is high school. Like he's like, this is where
Yeah.
I'm. When you have whatever
He's
point in your life.
comforted in that
Yes,
chaos.
yes, yeah. It's like he's like that's where he feels happy, and
I just hate that it's with Marco and Christian Horner. Like
I
maybe
know.
if Red Bull had different, team principal and,
Yeah,
higher up people, like, because they just seem awful. And I
and
just don't
especially
understand,
Marco. Like that was
especially Marco.
something we were going to
Because
talk
the
about,
thing
and we might
is,
as well just address it now. Like he's just a horrible
yeah,
human
he's a
being.
horrible dude. And so
Horrible human being.
going into it, the topic or whatever, it's
Yeah.
just like I could imagine Daniel like getting in the Alpha Tauri, which that car is horrific to drive.
Mm-hmm.
Yuki is
Mm-hmm.
doing the best he can, but it is horrific to drive. Daniel's not going to be able to do much better. in that car.
Yeah,
And you
I
already
don't.
know how Helmut gets down. He's gonna be in the media trashing this man after, he said all this stuff about how he had to nurse him back to health and like, we're so glad to have him back. And the minute that Daniel doesn't live up to whatever expectations that they have for him in this Alpha Tauri,
Yeah,
he's going to be right back to getting chopped down by Helmut Marko in the media. So I just hope that Daniel is prepared for that mentally,
yeah.
even though I know he's not. But it's
I
Helmut's
mean,
a
I
piece
don't
of
know.
work.
He dealt with that for a whole 2 years at McLaren already.
Yeah,
So,
and when
well,
he left, he wasn't
not
eating.
by yeah. Oh yeah, that's
So
right. That's
yeah, the
right.
man's
You're right. I
depressed.
forgot about that.
He's in a very fragile mental state. That's why I'm
I
like, I don't
forgot
know,
about
man. Yeah,
that.
I
I feel
know.
kind of bad for him, to be
I
honest.
feel
Like
very bad for him.
I feel well when I say I feel bad for him. I mean I do think he's like kind of. I don't think he's a very introspective person. At least it doesn't seem
No,
that way to me. Like even though he talks, he's talked a lot about how he feels and his motivation and this and that. But I don't think that he really carefully thinks these things through. He he could have
yeah,
things could have been different for him. He could have now. Haas couldn't afford him. They said. I mean, and they came out. They
yes,
was it was because he
yes.
was whatever he was asking for.
Price
But I was
is
like,
too
but even
high.
stuff
Yeah.
like that, I'm like, Danny. I mean, you're damaged goods. Like, do you really think you need to be asking for that much money for? He could have instead. And I remember at the time some commentators
Hmm.
being like, that's where some people I know really wanted him to go because they were like, this would be like chart your own path and your own destiny
Hmm.
with a new team, a new organization, completely different everything.
Yeah.
If he could have gone in there and been done like a Nico Hulkenberg, like the way he's doing this year, or even
Yeah.
when K-Mac first came back,
Hmm.
the way that people would have been like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, like this guy still
Yeah.
got it. Like he's still the shit.
Yeah.
Look what he's doing in the
I think
Haas,
I think when people have like I think this is exactly why Alex Albon is a really important figure right now for Formula One
Mhm.
drivers, both,
Mhm.
whoever's his contemporary, his peers, but also maybe people coming up. Because yes, he has shown through his work at Williams what it looks like. Yes, you're not in the most competitive car, but like we're gonna make lemonade out of lemons, basically. You know what I mean? We're gonna
Yeah.
try to make something happen. Daniel could have done that, but I think he has very limited thinking, and I think he immediately wants to be in the best car. Again, who doesn't, right? It's
Mhm.
that's the whole point of Formula One. But
Mhm.
what else can you do as a driver? In the interim when you're not given the best car to work with,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's maybe his biggest limitation is that he's not thinking that far out of the box. He just wants to be put in something that's already good to go and doesn't,
Right.
isn't too hard to drive. Obviously he has all those issues
Mhm.
adapting to cars. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think Alex is a great person maybe
Alex
that
is
people will
it's
start looking up
amazing.
to
It's like
as an
people need
example.
to yeah, people
Yeah.
need to look at I agree with you totally. People need to look
Yeah.
to him as an example of I hope younger drivers and other kinds of people are really paying attention to his career trajectory in general because, a lot of people when they, sit out for a year are never back. Or
Right.
they don't, come in. But Alex is look what he's doing. Look how look how Williams values him. Look how they're saying and people have of course, because especially because of how well he's performing this year, there is this like
Hmm.
talk like, oh, is Alex gonna, what's
Yeah.
gonna happen? Might Alex go to some better team or, something that's where he's gonna be fighting for bigger Alex himself is like, I mean, this could be, just like what people say, of course, but I really think he means it. He's like, no, I'm
Hmm.
very happy here. I really want to try to help Williams get, back further up the grid. And then James
Yeah.
Vowles is just like full of praise for him and
James
how,
Vowles, I was just about to say that he
yeah,
loves Alex. Like
I know it's the
hearing him
sweetest.
speak about like hearing how he
I
speaks so highly of him. And that's I think the contrast with like, Helmut Marko, somebody
know.
who's just like openly threatens, like Nick DeVries is basically he's like he has like 4 races or he has
Yeah,
until summer break basically. And it's like
yeah.
that's the difference, and that's why I'm like, I can't respect that because it's like
Mm-mm.
you put
Yeah.
these are supposed to be young junior drivers up and coming in that seat. Like you don't need to treat them like that to get results out of
No,
them.
no.
And I mean, again, I
No
know
one,
Formula
how
One's its
can
own little
anyone
beast, but
perform better when they're
And it's
having,
such a
there's
mental
just no
sport. So
way.
it's like this emphasis on
Exactly.
denigrating your driver every other business day is very strange. And like, I guess
It,
that's such an old way
it's,
of thinking of like how you get results
I
out of
guess.
people is you abuse
But
them.
like
But
even Haas, where I don't think of Haas as a place that's like warm and fuzzy with drivers
no,
either. But even Haas last season, when Mick Schumacher was, crashing the car and doing this and doing that,
right.
like people would ask Gunther, and he was like, "Well, Mick knows what's good," and it would make it just worse if I were
Hmm.
to be coming out and saying things,
Yeah,
who
it's
I
like a
don't think of.
filter.
Yeah, Gunther's not like a warm and fuzzy, like a let me put my arm around you. Like I don't see him as like a James Bowles. I can just see James in his, sweater and his, he'd be like comforting you and giving you a cup of tea.
Yeah,
And that's not Gunther. But even Gunther was like, people were, you could tell they wanted him to like say a thing about Mick that's something like the stuff
right.
that Helmut says, day in and day out. And he wouldn't do it. He was like, well, he knows it, what's happening, and it would only make things worse
Right.
if I would, so it's like, come on,
Yeah.
so yeah, I feel bad for Nick. I mean, he's not performing, yes. Maybe he is not going to keep a seat. It does definitely seems like it's
Yeah.
very likely that he won't. But it's really, I mean, Nick Yuki, when in his first year, he was very raw. I mean, yes, he was younger. People
Hmm.
expected more from Nick, having been in other categories and doing well and doing other. But
Hmm.
F1 is F1. Like
It's different. Yeah.
I still, when people mention that he was Formula E champion, I'm like, guys, like, why is that even being brought up? Like, no offense to Formula E, like that's still,
Hmm.
to win any championship is an accomplishment, because you're competing against all these other people who are also trying their best and
Exactly.
whatever. To win any championship is an accomplishment, 100%. But like, you can't tell me that like you look, that he won Formula E, and that means that he did win F2 in his,
Hmm.
but it wasn't his first year.
Yeah.
And some people say that it was a weaker field that year too. But even taking that aside, it's still like, I mean, sometimes if you watch F2 or F3 or other, you're like, I mean, I'm not saying I could win, but like sometimes,
Yeah. I mean,
sometimes in these junior categories, it's, you see things and you're like, what? How are you?
I feel like if anything, it gives you that a mental edge, coming into a new thing as a previous
Yeah,
champion. But you still have to learn the car. I mean, that's that
yeah,
we hear this week in and week out. Is like these cars are hard to drive. I mean,
yeah.
like look at Lewis Hamilton. He's the most experienced, most decorated driver. Like he
Seriously,
basically broke his back last season trying to drive these
yeah.
cars. Like they're not easy to get a handle on.
Mm-mm.
And then of course, when you and I'm not saying that Helmet has to bake the guy cookies and like, be
Yeah,
so
that's not gonna
soft on
happen.
him. But you like don't openly need to let him know publicly
Yeah,
that his seat is in jeopardy.
yeah,
Pull him aside and have a meeting like a normal
yeah,
person. Like I don't want to know all the ins and like everything I know about Red Bull, the inner workings of Alpha Tauri has been
yeah,
against my will. Truly.
yeah.
This man, Helmut Marko, talks way too much.
I know.
I bet you if we invited him on the show, he would accept because I think he just likes talking. I think he just likes to talk.
Okay,
And it's like
listeners,
Helmet.
don't worry.
Yeah.
This will never
It'll
happen.
no, it'll never
I
happen. He'll
will. I will
probably
not be
like
extending that
degrade
invitation.
both of
Don't
us on air.
worry. Yeah, no,
But
no.
still.
I'm sure a lot of people would think that would be a great get. Not us.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, no.
Man's nuts.
Yeah, it really is like he just can't shut up, and it's really, I mean, even like, I don't have really any love for Christian either, but Christian, you got to give it to him that he always
Sometimes he'll have a
protects his
filter. Yeah.
drivers. He does protect his drivers. Like, people have been trying to goad him into saying things about Checo for
Yeah.
the last, however many weeks, and he
Mm.
will not do it. Christian will not do it. Christian protects his drivers. He always speaks positively about them, even when they're struggling, even when,
Mhm.
so it's like, that's actually what you need from a leader, and from a,
Yeah.
can Helmut just please go away already? Like, we don't need this energy here
Enough.
anymore.
I'm
It's
tired of
just,
him.
it's, yeah, it's bad.
It's like
It's
such
bad.
bad vibes.
Oh my God, it's the worst.
Like we don't need
He
that
should
energy.
feel, I mean, it's also like irritating that, I mean, Nick handled it very well. He was asked, of
Hmm.
course, in the pre-race press conference. Helmet made, of course, they're
Yeah.
going to ask him. He was very classy and professional, and was like, well, I think Dr. Marko would like me to show it on the track. Like that's what
Right.
he was basically like saying like I'm not going to say, whatever people
Right.
would want me to maybe say. I need to show results on the track. And
Mm.
yeah, that's, it's tough for him, and maybe he won't be here much longer, but I think he's handled it really well, and
Yeah.
he's handled it very maturely, I think. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but okay, we should actually talk about. We'll talk about things about the race, but I did want to. I did want to renew our questions that need to be answered, framing for
Oh.
a few things. There are questions that need to be answered. One of them was, will we ever be rid of Helmut Marko? We just talked about that. That question really should be answered. I mean, when will the man retire? He's old already. Like, please just go off and do
I'm
something.
not gonna say what I want to say.
Yeah. Same, same, same. Same.
Next question. Is this a
Next
speed
question.
round?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Another question that needs to be answered that some people keep answering incorrectly
Mhm.
is, when will Max Verstappen mature as a person and as a driver?
Never.
The answer is never. I think the answer is never.
Not with the people around him that he has around him. He'll never
Exactly.
mature.
But I mean,
Maybe
even if maybe if he had, you're right. Maybe if there were
maybe if
different
he
people.
goes on like a
True.
retreat or something, like a 2-year retreat,
Yeah,
and
but he
like
would never do that. He
I
would
mean, we
never
never
do that.
know. The man wants to
Oh,
retire.
that's
He's gonna
true.
have to spend his
Yeah,
time
he's
doing
gonna do
something.
other kinds of racing.
But you know what I mean? Like the people around him just enable that behavior too much. And I'm not gonna completely take it off of him because he is an adult
Yeah,
as well. So like he
yeah.
needs to also, but I feel like when you're that hard and set in your ways, like it really does come down to having a new experience, because all he's getting is like this feedback loop that like everything he does is amazing. You're great, you know. There's no room for like critique that's constructive of like, hey, maybe
No,
you
and I
shouldn't
think
be
that
like
they
this.
they
And
all they all like the way
they
he
love
is.
it.
Basically,
Yeah.
they think
They love it.
this is great. This is the way.
Commentators love it. Yeah.
Yeah,
His
this
fans love it. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, commentators, like, commentators are, this is who I have a problem with. They're like, this year, they're like, is this the new mature Max Verstappen? I'm like, what are you people talking about? Unless he
Yeah.
actually has to race someone, I don't want to hear about this new mature Max Verstappen. And then
Yeah.
even
He
when
doesn't
I mean,
exist.
I don't understand what people are talking about. Like, you can't really judge any driver on
Hmm.
that unless they're actually under pressure from other
Hmm.
competitors, and unless they're actually having to go wheel to wheel with people. We've already seen what happened in the Baku sprint race. He
Hmm.
called George a dickhead. He's chasing him down the pit lane. The
Yeah.
man, he said what he said. Max says he's like chasing after him,
Yeah.
telling him, oh, expect the same next time, and to be the,
Mhm.
again, you don't have to. I mean, I've always thought of myself as sometimes a little bit of a petty person.
Hmm.
I've got nothing on Max.
Yeah.
Nothing. The man will. He held that Monaco grudge when Checo crashed. We think on
Yeah.
purpose. Until
Until just the
until
opportune time.
uh,
And he was like, I'm not helping you. And you
he's
know
not.
why. Yeah.
He doesn't forget. And then he. So I mean, especially so this weekend, the issues were, like, he pretended like Checo almost killed him in the opening laps of the sprint race.
Yeah.
When Checo, like, he said it later. He's like, well, that was not nice. That could have been a really big shunt. I was like, I
Yeah,
don't,
he missed the turn on
if you
purpose. So
say
yeah, it
so.
could have
I'm
been.
not sure
Yeah.
that that's true, but I mean, to be fair, I don't think Checo was telling the truth either. I think he could see him. I think he probably was like,
I think
but
it was fair racing, as Christian likes to call it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
or hard
It's like
racing. Yeah,
when
that's
he
what he
does
likes to
it to
call it. Like,
someone else, it's hard
yeah.
racing and fair. It's hard racing. But when someone does it to him, no. They almost
No.
Checo almost caused a big shunt, and people to this day are saying that Lewis tried to kill him in Silverstone.
Oh my God! Yeah.
To this day, people are saying that because of the way that whole thing was.
Despite the fact that the man was tweeting or texting from the back of the ambulance, he was fine.
Yeah, well,
they took him to the hospital for a little checkup, and he was fine.
Well, facts are not important, and that's not important. But I mean, so this weekend, if people didn't see the slight brouhaha, other than the sprint race where he and of course their teammates, and Checo is a company man. As much as people I think say that Checo doesn't fall in line as much as maybe Red Bull. Some people say that anyway, that as much as Red Bull would like. I think that he's a very good, Red Bull number 2 overall. Like he does what he's told. He gets big ideas sometimes about, that he can, fight for the championship or do. I mean, obviously that's all in the past now, but
yeah.
But he overall is, you could tell like they had a nice long chat in the FIA garage where they get weighed after after each, session or race or whatever. And they worked everything out. They were all on the same page in the press conference and everything. Everything was fine. Everything was great. We talked about it. It's behind us, yada, yada. But then in qualifying, was this in, I can't remember now anymore if this was in
the sprint qualifying.
Yes, the sprint quali. Yeah, the sprint qualifying. So Max Max was doing a push lap, and he felt that Lewis impeded him towards the end of that lap, which he probably didn't even need. I don't remember anymore but okay, it's I mean they the Ferraris were closer in qualifying this weekend, but it's still
he was like half a second up on the field when this happened.
So he felt like Lewis impeded him a little bit. So when Lewis started his last and it was the last flying lap he had, he and I listened to Lewis's radio. Lewis thought that Max was starting a lap and then he bailed out of it. But what actually was happening is that Max, again, he's a petty little bitch. Yeah. And because of that, he was like, "Oh, you impeded me. I'm going to impede you." It's like
the worst.
It's just not. It's not healthy. I don't care what is or isn't healthy for him, but this is not healthy behavior. If you're a person like this, just so you know, sure, it's not. It's not. He just can't handle it, like, especially when it's Lewis. Like if it was someone else who had impeded him, I'm not sure if you see him acting that way.
I think it would have been anybody. I mean, I remember when him and Mick were fighting for like P7 or something in a race.
That's true.
And Max was being super aggressive, and Mick was, I think it was like the first time he might have gotten points for Haas or something like that.
I think he was trying to
not get in a.
Yeah, that was in Silverstone, I think.
I think so, something like that.
I think it was, and that was a sprint weekend last season, wasn't it? Or that's right. That's right. I feel like we've talked about this before. Where actually, where then he made these comments like, "This guy is racing me as if like his life depends." Well, yeah, it actually did. Like he was on the brink of scoring his first points ever in Formula One.
But it's this whole thing of like this new mature Max or whatever, like he doesn't exist.
No,
he's the figment of your imaginations. The problem is no one's close to him. But even in one weekend, we saw 2 instances where he retaliated. Like he squeezed Checo up against the wall at the start of the sprint race. So Checo basically, scoots him over into the grass. Then you got Max, who completely dive bombs into a turn. By the way, fucks up Lando's race because he gets passed by like 6 or 7 cars, while Checo and Max stupid asses are like,
turned out okay fighting for Lando in the end, but
in the end, but it's just like, but that goes to kind of what George was talking about a while ago about like drivers you can trust,
right,
to be around. And I think Max is one of he's perfectly fine with ruining everybody's race around him because number one, the points don't matter for him, and he'll get out of the car and say that.
Yeah.
When it was Lewis, what was that? When did Lewis have an opportunity to win? Was that Brazil?
You mean
it was one race
season?
last year.
Yeah, there was. Oh, it might have been.
Max had already won for the season. So he was already the world driver
Oh, okay,
champion.
so this was after, yeah,
This was
maybe,
after that.
yeah,
And all I
okay.
remember was I think this was a time where I think Max had basically been mid pack or something. Qualifying
Mhm.
didn't go well or something
Right.
happened. And then, Mercedes little shitbox was doing okay that weekend. And I remember that there was a potential for Lewis to either podium or potentially win. I'm not sure
Yeah.
but either way, um, Max and Lewis, of course, meet together on track. I think Lewis has the inside line or something. I can't really truly remember, but
Yeah, yeah,
the circumstances were basically they came together.
yeah.
And afterward, Max was like, well, basically, my whole thing was either that race didn't matter to me, it mattered more to him.
Yes, I remember that. Now I can't remember what race it was either,
I
but now
have to
that
go
you've
back and
described it, I remember
fact
it.
check that.
I remember it
Sorry,
perfectly.
for people at home who are
Yeah.
listening who are like, she's not telling it right. But like
Yeah.
that's the gist of it. Like
Yeah,
he
yeah. No, I
basically ruined
remember. I
Lewis's race
remember.
on
Yeah, yeah.
purpose and
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
because he knew it didn't matter for
I
him.
do I do remember
Yeah.
that incident very, very,
Actually, what
very
it was
well.
I think
Yeah.
Lewis was actually in the running to win, and that
Yeah.
would have been his last opportunity to preserve that record where he
Right.
basically
Where
podiumed or
yeah.
won one
Where he
race
wins
every
every
season.
season. Yeah, which
Yeah, at
now
least
he
one.
hasn't because he
So
didn't.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's just a very, very petty person. He
Yeah.
again, he doesn't believe things apply to him that apply to everyone else.
Yeah.
He again, it's that entitlement. It's that
Yeah.
like I'm owed this,
Right.
and who
Everybody
do
else is
you
just supposed to
think you
disappear.
are?
Yeah.
Yeah,
On track.
right.
I'm coming through. It's like, yeah, there's just like such a fine line that I can't like, and I see people are always like, everybody just hates Max. Oh, like, first of all, nobody hates anybody.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Like, no,
yeah,
we don't hate him.
yeah,
We want better for him. We want better for the people who are around him because everybody who's competing against him deserves to compete on a level where like
yeah,
they get to finish the race. Do you know
yeah.
what I mean?
I've
Accidents
I've
happen.
said it many times, and I'll say it again.
Yeah.
Fernando Alonso also don't like him as a person.
Yeah.
But he is able to race
He's a
wheel to
racer.
wheel
Yes.
with
Yes.
people, whether he personally likes them or doesn't like them or have
Yes.
whatever. There are some drivers where we know he doesn't really have any love for Lewis, and
Mhm.
and yet he's able to race him fairly hard, but fairly, but without, if Fernando can do it, why can't Max? You
Yeah.
know?
And again, accidents happen. It's not like, we haven't seen the thing, they accidentally come together, but it's the retaliation. It's the
Yeah,
intent to
exactly.
actually ruin somebody else's race that
Hmm.
makes him untrustworthy and
Yeah.
basically unlikable as a driver. Like I
Yeah.
don't respect that. I'm sorry. Like I
No.
don't rate him that highly as a driver. I don't care what anybody says. He can win 1,000 races. For me, what it comes down to when I look at an athlete is like, what kind of integrity do you have? And can you compete fairly with people who are around you? Because to me, I'm like, if you're not beating the best, you're not the best.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like if your
exactly.
teammate can't even race you or like
Mhm.
keep up with you or like he's instructed not to, how are you comfortable crowning yourself the king of F1 with your golden boots and the one on the like it's just
Yeah.
that's such a lack of integrity that I just can't get down
Mhm.
with. But it's like again, he gets this endless feedback, positive feedback loop, what he's doing of like, you're great, you're doing great, you're the best, la 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 la.
Yeah.
It's like, can we fucking come down to reality for a second? Like he would be a
Mhm.
much better driver if he corrected these things.
Yes.
You
Yes.
can be aggressive, you can be ruthless, but you
Yep.
need there is a line in every
Mhm.
race. It's the fact that it's every single race.
Yep.
It
Yep.
gets tiring and
And that
exhausting to
it
witness
doesn't matter
somebody
like
get
who,
away
like
with
he
something
has
like
not
that.
changed. Like people, he
Yeah.
has not changed. In the infamous incident that, was of course captured in Drive to Survive, where
Yeah.
he had the thing with Esteban Ocon and then he shoved him and was like very,
Yeah, pushed them, yeah.
and it's if people don't know, there was I don't know how, I'm sure they didn't talk about it at length, but there
Mhm.
was Lewis actually, he like when he said something to him, or I don't know if they were talking or what, but he was like, he said something to Max like that, he was like, he had you had a lot more to lose than him. Like
Right.
you didn't have to do that.
Right.
That didn't have to happen. There's basically, and that's what Max,
Mhm.
he does. That's, I don't consider someone, I agree. Like I don't consider someone really a truly complete all around fantastic racer who we should say is one of the
Revere and
best,
respect.
unless,
Yeah, no
yeah.
way.
He's extremely talented? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is he going to go on to win as many, or potentially?
Yep.
There's no, but when you don't have competition, or when you treat your competition this way,
Mhm.
it's just not, or people who aren't even your competition,
Right.
you know, it's
Which
like,
is literally no one else.
like the thing they always ask, like every driver gets asked, like, what's possible today? What do you think's gonna, and
Yeah.
people will talk about that, or then after the race when they're being asked, like, this,
Mhm.
they're like, well, my race isn't really with, like, if you're a Haas, you're not really racing with, like, the Red Bull or the Ferrari or the whatever. So if
Yeah.
they come, I mean, certain drivers like K-Mag, I mean, actually usually does put up, he'll still fight. And I do appreciate when people do that. But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, they know that it's not,
Yeah.
he's not going to get into a crash with one of those cars, probably.
Right.
He might put up a hardy defense for a while, but he's not
Right.
going to be like, oh, let me really try to, defend here in a way
Right.
that maybe we're both going to
Yeah.
crash, because it's not worth it. What's the point? It's better
Yeah.
for him to try to get a point or two than to have that
Exactly.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it's not, when
Yeah,
when he is
imagine that
allowed.
you're thinking the long game, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
You're
mean, it's not
thinking
even,
strategy.
there are drivers who are very aggressive and who will defend even when it's, a much faster car, or whatever, which I do
Yeah.
like. I don't like, actually, when people just roll over
Let
for,
somebody go.
because
Yeah.
it's not your race.
Yeah.
And I mean, at least come on, like, give us something at least, you know what I
A little
mean? Like,
swerve. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, seriously, yeah, no. Nothing dangerous, obviously.
For
But
fun.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, but at least try, like,
Yeah.
it's always just very dispiriting to me when you see, like,
Yeah,
when
just pull
Max
over
is
to the
coming from the
side.
back
Yeah.
in Jeddah, or when there's people just kind of like, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
well, let me, but but yeah, I mean, people, like, even aggressive drivers do think about the fact that, okay, it's just not worth it here. Max
Yeah.
just does not have that. Like, there's never a there's
No.
never a point where he, again, we saw, like, in 2021 when they crashed in Monza, like, that didn't have to happen. They didn't have
No.
to, he was, and it's your, that's to me, that's how you separate the great from the really great.
Yeah.
Again, great, yes, great driver, yes, but, like, someone who can think long term, and who can, over the course of the season, who can make those types of decisions. And yeah, Max is running on spite. And that's it.
I mean, it's getting him very far. There's lots of hate is fueling that kid.
I mean, when you don't have to actually race anybody, like, this is, it's ironic that when Fernando said that thing about, oh, Lewis, this guy only knows how to race at the front. No, you're
Right.
talking about Max, actually. That's who you
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
That's really
It's a
who
lot of
that's
projection,
about.
I think, happens a lot in
There's a
Formula
lot of,
One.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, oh my God, there's so much.
You're telling on yourselves. Yeah.
There's so much projection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So please stop saying that Max has matured.
Yeah,
I
if you're not gonna hold him
beg of
accountable,
you.
don't dare get to say he's being more mature. Like, we don't even hold him accountable for the things that he has done that are, like, on camera
Right.
that are wrong,
Right.
clearly wrong. And
Uh
instead it's always flipped, like, when he goes over track limits, it's like, "Oh, should we even have track limits?" And everybody else, it's like, "Why can't you keep the car in between the white lines?" And
Yeah.
it's like, it's the very blatant double standard for him as a driver. It's like, we don't have to do this.
Yeah.
You
Oh
can
my God,
critique
the
him
track
without
limits.
making him, yeah, exactly, the track
The
limits.
track
The
limits.
star of the
This is
Austrian GP.
I know, right?
The main
Forget the
character.
drivers.
Yeah. The main
The main
character.
character totally was track limits. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
She was like, "Hi."
Uh, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. This leads us into discussing what actually happened in the
Yeah.
different races, etc. Whatever, sprint race weekend. It's crazy. But I mean, it has to be said. I think this might have been the best sprint race ever. I
Yeah,
think
I liked it. I enjoyed it. I mean, I don't
it was
typically
good.
love sprint race
Yeah,
weekend. It just
yeah.
feels like a
No.
lot after a while.
Yes.
You know, like, sometimes where, like, maybe you go to a friend's house, particularly, like, a friend who has, like, a grandmother there or something, and she cooks for everybody and she's like, "Oh, have some
Mhm.
food." And you're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, this was great. Thank you." And
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
like, "Have
yeah.
some more." And the next thing you
Right.
know, you've had, like, 3 plates of food and you're like,
Yes.
"Oh, man, I don't think I can eat anymore." And that's how I feel about sprint weekends. It's like,
Mhm.
there's
Mhm.
so much going. It's
Yeah.
almost like
It's a
overkill.
lot. It's a
I
lot.
almost forget there's a race on Sunday when we watch sprints
Mhm.
on Saturday.
Yes,
So,
totally. I had that experience this weekend.
yeah.
I was like,
I was
"Oh
like,
my god, that's right, it's Saturday."
yeah. Yeah, so
I was like, "Oh crap. There's a whole cra-"
exactly. It's like, I don't know. I know they're trying to figure out how to make it exciting each day of the
Yeah.
weekend for people who are
Yeah.
like, especially in person.
Yeah.
But it is like, I feel like they haven't really struck the right balance yet of
Yeah. It's
action
tough
to,
because I don't know what
yeah,
you would. I mean, there's no way to really do it any differently,
yeah,
probably, I would say, than but
yeah.
yeah, this sprint delivered. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, I mean, I've always been like neutral on the sprint. I'm not like
Hmm.
one of these people that loves it or hates it.
Yeah,
So I'm just kind of like whatever. If it's a good one, great. If not, I mean,
yeah,
to me that doesn't mean you have to throw the whole thing out necessarily. But
yeah.
this one was good.
It was good.
Yeah, it was good. But yeah, track limits, okay. Um, there's a lot of discussion about track limits, obviously, after this weekend. And I have to say, this is another one of the many, 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 I mean, unfortunately, way, way, way too many examples of when you look at something in F1 and you go, this is the pinnacle of motorsport, allegedly. Again, that's a marketing slogan. We all know that that's, not exactly the truth, so to speak. I mean, but it's, but even, but everyone buys into it.
Yeah,
Everyone buys into that these are the 20 best drivers in the world. Everyone buys into that
yeah,
these are, again, this is the pinnacle of engineering and of the pinnacle of engineering. Okay, maybe the cars, but then what about
yeah,
everything else? Like there has got to be a way. There's and actually that's one of the issues I think is that they do have like they do have like the sensor system or something.
hmm,
It's not like literally that some people think that it's like literally somebody has to sit there and slow mo each
yeah.
then it would take even
That's what it
longer.
feels like. Yeah,
But that's exactly it. That's exactly
yeah.
it. And when the drivers, that was the thing that when I remember in the like post race show on F1 TV, they
Mhm.
talked. The drivers often come by, and when they were talking to Alex and Logan, Alex especially, he really explained, and he's always very like honest and very, he's another one of these like Lando, like Charles. There are
Mhm.
definitely people who are, I feel like very honest. Like Charles this weekend
Yeah.
being honest about. He said that he's not good at driving in changeable conditions when it's like wet to dry, dry to wet.
Yeah.
He sure some some people think he's a generational talent, but he was like, I am not good at this, and I need to work on it. I
Yeah.
was like, I couldn't love him anymore. Like
Self-reflection. Yeah.
he's very, it's rare that you have that honesty, and that everyone jokes about drivers have 500,000 excuses for everything. It was the wind, it was
Yeah.
the this, it was the setup, it was the, and sometimes those things are true, of course, but like,
Yeah.
but Charles, I thought that was very commendable, honestly. He's like, I need to get better at this. I was like,
Yeah.
wow. But anyway, but like Alex too is, I feel like, is like that kind of driver, and is just honest about a lot of different things. I feel like often you see he'll be in the
Yeah.
Williams videos being like, can we spend less time on marketing? Like he says it in the video. He'll be like,
Yeah.
and they leave it in, and it's, that's, it's funny.
They're like, this
Um,
is charming.
yeah, they're like, this is charming. Even though I'm like,
Yeah.
Alex, this is a major part of the sport. Like the people
Right.
are
You need the
paying you
money.
money, and so I'm like, like
Yeah.
maybe not, but that's it's
Wait till the
yeah,
check clears first.
right, exactly. I'm just saying. But yeah. So he was like, the thing that he said that really made me think about how pathetic this was. Besides the fact of how it looked, because I don't think I'm not like one of these people who's like, oh, thinks penalties came later. I mean, it looks a little silly, yes, and when it changes the results, it definitely
I agree.
looks, silly. But I'm
Hmm.
I'm I'm kind of like, I'm more understanding, I guess, than some, I
Yeah.
think,
I
fans,
agree.
where I'm like, okay, things can happen, or there's
Hmm.
if something has to get changed, then it has to get changed. It's
Yeah.
okay. I'd rather like the rules were followed, right, and the things,
Exactly.
that's, yeah, and if that's what it, but
And the results are provisional anyway. I don't think people
exactly,
understand that
they
the
always
results
are.
are
Yeah,
provisional, so they
that's
can
right.
change after the
That's
fact.
right.
So yeah,
That's right.
it's
And
fine.
so but the thing that Alex said that really made me think about this was that he said that because of the slowness of them, making these
Hmm.
decisions, even within the race, he's talking
Yeah.
about like, the engineer tells you, oh, you got like a penalty for, but they were so slow that it was like they were telling him about penalties he was getting for things that happened like 20 laps ago. you
Oh
know
wow.
things that they
Yeah.
tell you, or they tell you, like, because as a driver, he's like, when you're in and I think this is what he meant to say, is that like if you're in the situation, you're being given the information, then you do try to react. You do try to.
Mm-hmm.
He's like after they kept telling me, I was like not even taking the curb at all, like
Mm.
when and thus probably going slower, but like
Right.
but so they do try to, they're like, oh, they gave me a penalty, I will try to not get that again, or not
Right.
have that happen again, whatever the thing was.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, but because they were telling us so late, it's like you couldn't even really react to it in the
Yeah.
moment. And so it does, from that standpoint, it's like there's got to be another way, and there's got to be. And when they say things like that, the that it's expensive for them because MotoGP races there, so they don't want to put the. I'm like, I'm
Stupid.
sorry, I don't understand. I need someone to like show me a spreadsheet or something, or do it like where I can understand why the people in charge of the track cannot. How expensive is this really?
Yeah.
F1 is booming.
Yeah. They're printing money currently. It's
Like I know that it's not the same for that. When you're actually the circuit owner promoter, like you're actually your
yeah.
payment kind of goes the other way too. But like I mean, these things are always selling out, and they're all
Mhm.
like there's got to be. I feel like there's got to be a better way. Or if you can't, or if that really is true, that it's super cost prohibitive because you've got MotoGP there
Mhm.
and other types of racing and whatever, which of course can have, people. That's why there's, I mean, gravel and things like that. Those are very dangerous for riders.
Right.
So I can completely understand why, of course, the riders don't want it.
Mhm.
Valid, fair. But like then something from the FIA standpoint needs to be done in terms of like they have this. I mean, again, the pinnacle of motorsport, really. If you have these brilliant engineering minds that are creating these cars. Now I understand
Yeah.
none of those people work for the FIA, but
But
nevertheless,
still,
there's
yeah.
got to be some way to somehow solve this, maybe in a way that like would actually really, if you have a sensor, then you should be able to instantly deliver that information somehow
Yeah.
to the. It shouldn't be like you tell the maybe there, I don't know, maybe you'd have a maybe there should be something on the driver's steering wheel, maybe there should be some, I don't know, I'm
Yeah.
not an engineer. But like
Yeah. I don't know what the
there's
solution is either. I mean, it is one of those things where you feel like, okay, well, the FIA is not going to do anything. The track owners aren't going to do anything. Do we so we just do this next year where we get 1,200 instances of,
yeah.
track limits needing to be reviewed, and then like
It
was it
was
like
crazy. People
87 or
didn't
83?
see they added more stuff after the
Yeah.
initial news of like, oh, we have all this. That I saw an article like just today. So it's
Yeah.
funny. I saw other people who do like podcasts or other things or comment who had like
Mhm.
recorded their episode who were
Oh,
like,
like immediately after the race and then had to go back and
no, but even there was another one. They added more stuff after that one, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
So
really?
even people, yes, it didn't materially change. There
Oh
was
my
some. I
god.
don't. I honestly couldn't work out, and I didn't even want to try to work out whether it changed anyone's position. I looked at like the first like 8 or 9 or whatever;
Mhm.
those all were the same. So I didn't really. I don't. I don't. I think it maybe didn't change anyone in the points anyway. So it wasn't like a, but it still there were changes, and I was just like, this is hilarious, like not in a good way.
Not
Like
funny, haha.
like it's gonna
Yeah.
be like 5 years later, and they're gonna be like, excuse me,
Yeah.
we found more track
Yeah.
limit violations from that one race.
It just doesn't make sense. I'm like, so either we it's like, okay, I get that they enforce the track limits, but maybe at a track like this, we consider not
Yeah, I mean,
enforcing
and
them.
that's
Like,
kind of happened sometimes with the, like, a lot of people brought up the example of there was in I don't remember if this is what they did last season too, but in 2021 in I want to say Jeddah or somewhere, there was like some race where I can't remember, but there was
mhm,
some race where they enforced things really strictly in qualifying, but
yes.
then during the race they were like, okay, we're not
Yes,
gonna,
that makes sense
which
to
makes
relax
more
it a little bit.
sense.
Yeah.
Which makes more sense because in qualifying, of course, is also where it matters more.
Mhm.
You're, and so
Gaining it. Yeah.
that's where you could, yeah. In fact, I mean, people were, I think, rightfully making fun of Checo for like, he didn't get into Q3 because of he had 3 different lap times all deleted,
Yeah.
but they did tell him on each one
They
of
did.
those, so he
And they
had an
told him the
opportunity.
exact
Okay,
turns. Yeah.
I'm giving him a pass, especially this weekend. Like he was sick, so actually, it's like
Yeah.
I'm like whatever. And I'm not. I'm not one of these people that I truly don't understand how people can sit there and talk about like, oh, Checo's doing so poorly. Is Red Bull gonna get someone else? I'm like, who
Yeah.
are you gonna get? Are you out of your mind? Like
There's
he's like
nobody
the
left.
perfect person, a
Yeah.
man with 3 children who needs a paycheck. Like you this is who you need to keep there
Yeah.
for as long as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, but like it's so something like that. I think some people
Yeah.
were suggesting like maybe you could have it very strict during qualifying, but then the race not. And that's especially when the drivers would say things like, and I believe them here. They're like, there were some of those instances where it's like you're not gaining an advantage, because the
Yeah.
whole point of it is supposed to be that like, yeah, it should be, if you because why do they go so far over?
Hmm.
Why do they do it so often? Why does that happen so much? It's because
Right.
of people, you can carry more speed, you can get, but they were saying that it was, and Alex Albon said that he was like, well, it was really windy, for example. And he was like,
Mm.
literally, I can tell you if there was like a gust in that second that you went, like you would have been over
Yeah.
the line. Maybe you were trying to not be over the line. But then that's the other thing. Like people were saying that people are like, well, you gotta drive differently, then you have to like slow down. Well, you can't tell racing drivers to slow down. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
not going to work. Like you can't,
Yeah.
it's not. That's not how could that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work. And
Yeah, they have to give some point. I mean, either somebody's going to have to pay to make the sensors more efficient, or you're going to have to just enforce the track limits for
I mean,
quality
something has to
and
happen.
forget.
It's just
But you know what I
silly.
mean? Like this,
It's
everybody
silly.
holding up their hands, being like, "There's nothing we can do." Like
It
it makes you guys look crazy. Like
really does.
seriously,
It
you
really
may not all
does.
be engineers, but the perception of F1 is that it is full of smart people. Like maybe
Yeah.
we should try to like live up to that a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, again,
Yeah.
it's like I hesitate to even
Yeah.
bring that up because it's like, again, it's a marketing thing. It's very, very effective. They've made everyone believe
Yeah.
it, even all the people who parrot this idea that it's the pinnacle of motorsport, and yet we're gluing on Yuki Tsunoda's rear wing with duct tape, and so I mean, I think I'll have that picture saved forever. I always wanted to like put that on a T-shirt and put like pinnacle of motorsports. It's like this is what I do at home when
Yeah.
something's falling off, and but but like, yeah, it's even with the sober reality that this is not really as it's marketed necessarily. Like you said, there's so many smart people, they should be able to figure something out.
Figure it out, guys.
So yeah, someday maybe.
I will say this is the only sport I feel like I've had to brainstorm every week how to make it better.
Yes,
Do you know what I
yes,
mean? Like I just feel
yes.
like
My
it's
God,
not
that's
my
so
job. I'm not
true.
being paid
That
to
is
do this.
so true. That is so true. Oh my God, you're right. It's like so many people like that, and they're constantly asking the drivers and stuff too, which okay is who you should be asking in a lot of those situations. But it's like that's kind of not their job either. Like
Yeah.
they're always it's very strange. It's very
But then it's
very
also like you have all these opinions and thoughts and these people who are figuring cool stuff out. And it's just like you don't listen to any of that. Do
no,
you know what I
yeah,
mean? It's
no,
just like if you wanna I don't know.
it's bizarre. I know we're not being paid for this,
You can't
guys.
make
So like,
everybody better. You know what I
it's
mean? You can't want
uh,
more for them than they want for themselves. I think
yeah,
that's
true.
what it's coming
That's
down
yeah.
to.
No, you're right. You're right. That's so true. That's so true. That works for so many things. Um,
Put it on a mug.
yeah, yeah. That goes out to all of you people who are saying Max is
Yeah.
matured too. By the way, you can't just because you want it to be true doesn't
Yeah.
doesn't make it true. Um, just because you want to pretend it's the pinnacle of motorsport, it's not. So I mean, I was talking to somebody who was like who's like a marshal, and they've marshaled
Mhm.
at like the F1 races too, but usually marshals will often be they'll be based at like some local track where it's just like club racing, or people amateurs do the
Mhm.
and they're marshaling and things like that too. He's like I feel like we have a better system for than Formula One. I mean, and I'm like that's just insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. So yeah. But something something else that, of course, because I'm like media obsessed, and I have to always pay attention to these things. Um, just quickly, it's F1 TV edited out Lewis saying that the sprint doesn't really matter. which was just hilarious. To
Uh-oh.
me, it
Yeah.
was just great. If people saw the original clip,
Mhm.
um from people, because there's this one like Twitter account that grabs things right away, and then there's other, I mean, I may have seen it in other places. If people didn't see Lewis's interview after, so because his sprint qualifying didn't go very
Mhm.
well, and it went better for the other qualifying, and he was, they asked about it, he's like, well, sprint doesn't really matter. And he said those words, the sprint doesn't really matter. And I remember when I saw the original one, I was like, they're not gonna like that. And
Mhm.
wouldn't you know,
Censored him.
when you saw it later, they had edited it out, and instead it was like B-roll of him. So it was seamless. You would
Mm.
never. They're very good at those people are
There.
good at their jobs. I mean, if only they could figure out track limits, it would probably go a lot
Hello.
better. Those people are very good.
Yeah.
You would never ever know that he said that.
Mm.
And I just thought that was so funny that that you can't have that. This is the level to which it's, like state owned media, you know,
Yeah.
and other people use F1 TV stuff. I don't know.
Mhm.
Like there are times when you see on Sky and it's like the same thing, or vice versa.
Mhm.
I don't really know if it was on other things too. It might well have been, but
Yeah.
just so everyone knows, he said the sprint doesn't really matter, and they edited it out because they don't want even the hint of an idea that the drivers think that it doesn't matter, because the sprint is very
But
exciting.
I mean, the drivers, and this is, I think, what my thing with the sprint
Yeah.
weekend is, especially when you're in the sprint, there's a certain point in the race where they stop pushing and they essentially are just
Totally.
nursing the
Totally.
cars back home,
Yeah.
getting it because they're not trying to ruin the car for the race the next
Yeah.
day. They're not trying to go too hard. So I feel like you get a sprint for like 7 laps, really, and then it's like the rest of it. And so, to your point earlier about this being one of the more entertaining ones, I think
Yeah.
thankfully we had like a tire change on like lap 17.
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of made it
Yeah,
exciting, and
because it was the weather played a
the weather
role, and
changed.
that's
Yeah.
what, and that definitely, of course, added to it. Yeah.
So, Stefano can lie all he wants and say everybody enjoys it, everybody loves it. And then when you have the main drivers who are, your number one attraction to the sport saying it doesn't
Yeah.
matter,
Yeah.
yeah, I think he's echoing the sentiment that most people have, which is like
Exactly.
it doesn't matter, and you're not really you're fighting for extra individual points or whatever,
Yeah.
but it's like who really
Yeah.
cares? I mean,
Yeah.
honestly. So they need to go back to drawing board with the sprint, find a way to make it fun or like make raise the stakes or something for it.
Yeah,
It just
yeah,
doesn't
maybe.
really
I don't know. I mean,
matter.
again, I don't know what the answer is with that whole format. If there is
Me
one, if
either.
there's
It's a
something that
headache.
needs to, again, no one's paying us for this. I really don't even want to give it much thought.
But if you do want to pay us for our consulting,
We're available. We're available. Yeah, by all
we'll,
means.
we'll set up a
Um,
Venmo. You can Venmo us.
yeah, I mean, we might be able to help you with the track limits too. Listen, I know this
I'll
guy,
watch like a
and
hawk. I
I'm
have four
just
eyes.
saying.
I can see what's
Yeah.
going on. I'll watch that line.
I don't know. I'm not sure, Tasha. You're gonna be like, let's be real. It's gonna be like Lewis
I'm
goes
gonna
over.
be tweeting.
I didn't see that. If Lewis
I'm
goes,
gonna be like this as a Marshall.
yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't see that.
Yeah. Oh, can
What
you
do
do
you
that
mean?
again? Yeah.
Yeah. Not gonna work probably. But, but yeah, I just think that was hilarious that they edited it out. I mean, I like
Can't even
seriously
have your
like.
own opinion anymore these days. Like,
I
come
mean,
on. Like, if he doesn't
yeah.
care,
The
like,
original clip is out there. I will put a
yeah.
link in the show
I
notes,
like
of
Spicy
course,
Lewis.
as
Like,
you
I
all
like when he
know.
shows up. Like,
Yeah, I
Love and
mean,
Light Lewis is great. I'm not gonna like he's that's my guy, but I like
yeah.
when he gets a
Oh no, I
little
prefer the other
spicy.
Lewis.
Yeah,
I
a little.
prefer the. That's where I relate more to that Lewis. I'll be
I think
honest.
most of us
Yeah.
do,
Well, yeah,
especially in this
most people,
situation that he's in.
exactly.
Like, I would be
Yes.
raging every single day. So yeah, if he wants to say a
Yeah,
little,
yeah. No, when he's Love and Light Lewis, I'm like,
yeah,
I can't relate. Maybe if I was in his position,
yeah,
I don't know, but I don't know. I don't think I would be. Again, like I said,
yeah,
I'm a little bit.
yeah,
Max is much pettier than me, but I'm more on the petty side, I would say. So
yeah.
I can't relate. To I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy for him. Like we've talked about
Yeah,
before, drop the mental health routine.
yeah.
Definitely. Because how is he so healed and so you know, I don't know.
Maybe he
And good.
microdoses mushrooms.
Maybe.
I've heard
Yeah,
LSD
that's
makes you
vegan,
happy.
right? That's yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think, yeah, because
Yeah.
it's yeah. So
I'm always making
maybe,
shit up that I'm
yeah.
like, maybe.
I
Like, let
know.
me stop.
I love it. We're just speculating. We're just
Cause like
speculating.
it could be that he reminds me of like those people who like say like, oh, I don't drink coffee in the morning. I just wake up and I'm ready to go. And it's
Right.
like, how is your brain chemistry really that
Oh,
balanced that you
I
wake up
feel
happy and
a
alert
little
and
bit.
alive? Is that
I
you?
um. I mean, okay. I'm not gonna go. Let me be clear. Let me be
Okay.
clear. I'm not necessarily. I'm not happy necessarily. I'm
Okay.
not. I'm the. But I do. Yeah, I don't actually like require caffeine.
Okay, let me
Yeah,
ask you this question. And
okay.
when you go into work early for like
Yeah.
an 8 a.m. meeting, which person are you? Are you the hey everybody and la 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 la? You're like talking and everybody else is like half asleep still? Is that
I'm
you?
sorry, but yes.
Oh, Anna.
Yeah, I know. I know. We're not. We're. It's just good that we don't have to go to meetings together
Right.
because you would actually hate me. No, I literally have. It's funny you mentioned that because I very, very, very clearly remember everyone hating me at like my high school bus stop. You know, because you'd get to the bus stop
Oh
waiting
my
for the bus,
God. Yeah.
right, for the school bus. You know, the school
Mhm.
bus, and everyone's like, you know, in the what is the more
Zombie
normal I
mode.
have
Yeah.
learned, you know, from
Yeah.
other, and my husband is one of those. I mean, I used to, it took me, I think, I, it took me at least 5 years or more to learn not to speak to him in the morning, and then he's actually gotten
Right.
better at but for a while there, I was like, this doesn't compute. Like, I just did
Right.
not
Why is
understand.
anybody talking to me right now?
Like why he can't like form
Yeah.
sentences or respond to requests or do yeah. But
Yeah.
so, yeah, I remember I would come to the bus stop and I would be like literally what you just described. I'd be like, morning, you know, like
Hey
I'd be like,
everybody.
and people, you know, hated me, of course. Like I get it. I understand. I don't take it personally.
You need
And
time
these
to
days
thaw in the
I
morning,
probably
Anna.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I know. It's yeah, it's
Gotta boot up my system. I can't be talking to anybody.
No, I get it. I know.
And
I'm
the funny
married to a
thing is, I
person
didn't
who's
think I was like that. I didn't think I was the grumpy morning person because I do
Mhm.
wake up. I'm like, hey,
Yeah,
like in my
yeah,
mind, but in
right.
reality, like when Christopher talks to me, when he talks to me in the morning, I'm like, yo, don't.
Why is he a morning person?
He's not. He's
He's
not a morning person either. But it's just like I don't want to be
mm,
taught for like an hour. Just like don't talk to
okay.
me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
like
yeah.
he'll start talking to me in like 45 minutes, and I'm like, look, you got 15 minutes left.
Too
Like,
early.
don't talk to me. Like I'm not pleasant. Oh, so anyway.
Wow. How long? He hasn't been trying long enough. Then I'm
uh,
him and I are gonna talk because with my husband it was like I
yeah.
said it was a bunch of years, but
Hmm.
eventually he got to the point where
Yeah.
you can talk to him. You still can't necessarily have a long,
Yeah.
but he definitely changed over the years. I think
Hmm.
because he just had to.
Right.
I mean, I probably changed. We both. I'm sure we
Yeah. It came to like an
we came.
equilibrium.
That's right. We
Yeah.
came to. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily
Yeah.
talk as much as I used to, and he's
Yeah.
become less. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's he just needs to keep working on you a little more,
Yeah.
and maybe.
Maybe.
But yeah, where was I going? I don't know where we're going with this, but what I wanted
I
to say.
discombobulated you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. But what I wanted to say was that I definitely think there's a lot of opinions about this, but
Yeah.
I do think that one of the best moments of the weekend was Toto telling Lewis to drive the car.
Oh my God. What did he say? He said, you know,
He
the
said,
car
"I know the
sucks.
car's bad, but please drive it," which
Please,
is like what's
he sounded like an exasperated like parent, like just
yes.
like please just eat your
Well,
food. I want to go
Toto's
to
the
bed.
ultimate
Yeah,
daddy,
he
as
is
everyone
the
knows. I
zaddy,
mean,
as the
it's
youths like to say.
yes, exactly.
Um,
Yeah, I know. I've heard
but
that.
yeah,
I actually knew that.
yeah,
I feel cool.
zaddy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love
No,
Toto,
but like
but
Toto, that was the moment where like I definitely was like we all know that we love Lewis here and big
yeah,
fans in it. But in that moment I was definitely like the that guy was talking about, the fever
hmm
dream of the discerning housewife, whatever, and the greeter in Australia or
Mhm.
wherever that was. I was like, when he said that, I was like, yeah, that's right. Lewis works for Toto.
Yeah.
Like you tend to forget, because
Yeah. Yeah.
Lewis is like bigger than the sport, bigger than the
Yeah.
team, bigger than, but I was
Yeah.
like, oh, say it again, Toto.
Oh no.
I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed. Listen, I again, respectfully, I
Right.
really like Susie Wolf a lot, but she knows. She knows.
Right. Of
She's
course.
well
Yeah.
aware.
Yeah.
She's well aware of what's
So
going
funny.
on here, and yeah, it was just like, he can't. It was like a parent, but it was also just like that. It just like reminded you. Oh yeah, he's the boss. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
be the boss,
It's
Toto.
like, please just drive the
Yeah.
car. It's like,
So
Lewis,
funny.
please. I'm so tired.
Yes. It was just
I thought it
another.
was funny.
It
I've
was
seen so
so
much
funny.
discourse about it. Some people think, that it was
Oh, I
disrespectful.
mean,
I
I
just
don't
personally
think
saw it as
so.
like, I just think it was one of those days where everybody was cranky and everybody just
Yeah.
had their like little moment and it's nothing crazy. They don't hate each other. There's no beef. It was just
No,
like, dude,
no,
we're so sorry.
no.
Because this is not the first time he's gotten on the radio.
Yeah,
But I
that's
do think
right.
this is funny that, it's gone from like, Lewis, we're so sorry you have to drive the car. Lewis, what we promise it'll get better. And this time it's just, we know it sucks. Can you just drive
Right.
it? Like, please. He's just like
It's just
pleading with him at this point.
oh man. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like and first of all, I mean, people like to think, especially, I think when it's really experienced drivers like Lewis and like, people tend to think of them as these larger than life characters, but they're human beings
Mm-hmm.
like everyone else. They need, when you often when people talk about the relationship between the engineer and the driver, engineers will tell you that's one of their most important kind of focuses, is that they have to know what to say, the right thing to say, how to say it to the driver,
Mm-hmm.
to help either encourage them, to help them kind of calm down, to help them
Yeah.
whatever they need to know how to talk to them. And Toto is obviously not Lewis's engineer, but he also has known him for a long time,
Yeah.
and they're very close. And he is like, I gotta step in here, and it was like, I think it's funny. I think
Yeah.
it reminds everyone that, again, Lewis is an employee in this
Yeah.
situation, a very, very, very highly paid, successful,
Yeah.
star employee, of course, but he's an employee, and
Yeah.
it was kind of like, listen, you quit your whining.
Yeah. I also just think that the track just one, I think they knew going into the
Yeah,
race and this weekend particularly because the Mercedes is still that like car that they need practice sessions. And so when you only give
they really
them one
do.
practice session to
Yeah,
set their car
they
up, it's
really
like
do.
I think that like kind of messed with them this weekend. So I
Totally.
think it
Think
ended
about,
up being
yeah,
worse than
it
they
was
thought
much worse.
it could have been.
Think about how many
Yeah.
weekends this season, especially, I feel like
Yeah.
already, or even in the past too, like where free practice one, they're like nowhere. Free
Yeah,
practice two,
exactly.
sometimes better or sometimes worse even. And then
Hmm.
free practice three, it's better. And then
Hmm.
suddenly for qualifying, they're like, okay.
Yeah.
They're there or
Yeah.
thereabouts.
Yeah.
So yeah, they really need all those.
They need
They
all the
really need
practice
all
sessions that
those.
they can get.
Yeah, they
And so I think this was just like an overall frustrating
yeah,
race. And then of course
yeah,
Lewis gets all those penalties and
yeah.
I just think I just think it was one of those like crappy, shitty races where it was
Yeah.
just like, I just want to go home.
Yeah,
Like,
right, right,
I think
right,
everybody just wanted to pack up
right.
the garage and just dip
Yeah, and it
out.
was
They're
like
done
really
here.
understandable
Yeah.
too from
Yeah.
Lewis's side. It's understandable. Last
Yeah.
weekend was so great, and then now you
Yes.
come here and you're like, okay, you might think, okay, it's not going to be as good, but you don't think it's going to be that bad,
Yeah.
And it was
The
such, it
high
felt like such a
highs and the
step.
low lows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and
It's
that's frustrating. Like I mean, again, Lewis is very like,
yeah.
he's very even keeled overall and very whatever, but like when it's now the second year of
Yes.
these types of struggles, it's tough. Like, okay, you
Mhm.
could say that, other drivers struggle their entire careers. Well, other drivers haven't won 7 championships,
Right.
quote unquote 8, and
Mhm.
aren't you know, uh when you're at
There's
that
a
level, like
standard
people
that
do,
they're trying to
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, people, I think it's on the one hand, I am irritated when people question his motivation and his whatever. Like,
Mhm.
why does he really want to be here driving this, substandard car when he's,
Right.
he's already achieved all this. And on the one hand, that's obnoxious and whatever. Like we've talked about that before. People are always trying to
Mhm.
retire him, you know.
Yes.
But on the other hand, there is some truth to that, of course, because
Mhm.
when you've been, at the top and then suddenly now you're having to deal with there's it takes, it's gonna take you're gonna take a hit kind of
Yeah.
emotionally and psychologically from that.
Yeah.
Of course, like you, and he was just frustrated.
Yeah.
He was just frustrated. He's like he's like telling him about they're telling him about the track limits, and he's like, "Well, I can't. The car won't turn."
Well, and then I think the other thing was he was seeing other drivers go over
Right.
track limits as well, and nothing was
They all,
happening. So I
yeah.
think it
So
just the
the
frustration kept building and building,
yeah,
and I think
yeah,
Toto stepped in, kind of like when somebody's like hysteric in a movie, you know what I mean? They're like
yes,
going off hysterically,
and then
and
someone
then
like
their friend will
smacks them in
slap
the
the shit
face.
out of them.
Yes,
Yeah, I think
totally,
that's all that
totally.
was. So I don't think it was like mallet. I just think it was sort of like,
Oh no, no, it was a verbal face slap
yes,
from
he was just
from
like,
Toto. It was,
yeah,
yeah, totally, 100%,
he was
hundred
like, stop
percent.
spiraling.
He needed that. Yes, he
Yeah,
was spiraling. That's right.
yeah.
He was like, and even I was like, even I was like it was. I was like Lewis, like,
Yeah.
because he kept asking about the, normally we don't hear, and I mean, of course, it's
Mhm.
played up for the drama and for the entertainment, and then normally you don't hear any of
Yeah.
Lewis's radios that much, or you'll hear, these types of
Like
things,
a
but
handful,
here it was
maybe.
like
Yeah.
all the time because it
Yeah.
was, I mean, and it was funny, and it was like, again, he's a human being. Like
Mhm.
when you're frustrated, sometimes it just becomes that, like, nothing was going right this weekend,
Yeah.
for the most part, and it just kept getting worse
Compounding.
and
Yeah.
worse, and he was it was a weekend of great radios though, honestly, like, right? It was like
Yeah.
the like
Oh my god.
Carlos's,
What a yes.
he's intimidating
He was
me.
intimidating me. Oh my god. Like Carlos. Meanwhile, this man's moving under braking. So Checo's having like the hardest time safely
Oh my
overtaking
god.
him.
I can't.
Yeah,
Like people were
I
okay,
called
I
him the
have
F1 Karen. I was like, this guy is
really
insane.
is. I'm sorry.
Yeah. He's like, I'm
I mean,
calling the police. Yeah.
yeah.
This man's intimidating me. Like,
Yeah, 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 totally,
dude.
totally. Carlos is like, and I do. On the one hand, it's sort of like, I guess you could say, also very honest and very like. But this
Yeah.
is now like the second time this season where it's like some kind of ridiculousness. Honestly, like remember how with the penalty in Australia, how he was like, "This is." Do you remember those
Oh, he's like, this is
radios?
like one of the worst thing that's ever
Yes.
happened or something. Or was that
Remember, and of course,
after?
people were like, "Yeah." People were like, "Really, Carlos?"
Yeah.
Like, I mean, of course, mostly like Lewis fans, but even so, even putting it
It's
outside
like
of
have
that,
some
it was
perspective,
like, really.
like
I mean,
the
yeah.
worst thing that's happened in
I
Formula
mean,
One
come
in
on,
recent
come
years.
on.
Okay.
It was like he's like drivers. It's funny. They're really very 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 emotional people, but in different ways. Like
Yeah.
there are different, like Charles is very emotional, but he's
Hmm.
emotional in, again, like these different ways. Like
Yeah.
he'll be like when something goes wrong, no, or I'm stupid, I'm the famous,
Yeah.
or the things, like he's very emotional too. But Carlos is like, it's like this different level. It's like this other level. I'm not saying it's worse or better than anyone else
Yeah.
necessarily. It's just like a very particular type of
Yeah.
emotionality that he has.
I would say like
I mean, it
victimizing
kind of is.
himself. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Like he's
Like, why
intimidating
does
me. Like
everything
really?
happen to me? Like, yeah, intimidating
Yes.
Checo. The man who
Yes.
could not even get out of Q1 half the time is intimidating you. Like, please.
I mean, it was mysterious, like, to a lot of people because, of
Yeah.
course, like when you're going, wheel to wheel with someone, like they're gonna intimidate you, and of course, Checo was totally confused about it. They asked him in the press conference. He laughed and he's like, "I have no idea what
I
that
was like,
means."
what?
Yeah, I mean, what does that even mean? And and of course, some people were, I don't know, people were like, "Well, English isn't his first language. What did he, maybe he was trying to say something else."
Mm,
And I'm like, and then I think I saw people who looked at it closely were saying that they thought that Checo was really like, um, you know, moving his car in a certain way or placing it like where he really like was almost trying to like use his car as a weapon, sort of like type of thing. I'm like, well, I don't know where he would have learned that,
Right.
but just as an aside. But I'm like, that's that's pretty common when.
I just still was like cracking up though. I was like,
So
Carlos, if you don't
funny.
stop. Like he commits
So
all kinds
funny.
of acts of terrorism on the track. And it's like when it
Totally.
happens to him,
He's just like in this case, he's like a much more lovable and affable and likable Max type. Like it's a similar vibe. Like when I do it, it's okay, but when other
yeah.
people do, it's
Yeah,
not.
I will
But
say people, I think it flies under the radar with Carlos a lot. I don't think,
yeah.
like, I feel like I've picked up on it and I'm like hyper aware of it now that he's
Hmm.
basically, like, he's not as bad as Max,
No,
but
no,
he's
no.
up there
Yeah,
in
yeah,
terms of
yeah. No,
doing
no, he
shit that
is.
you
He
shouldn't be
is.
doing. You could
Hmm.
just defend like a normal person. You don't actually
Yeah.
have to like do all kinds of like little acts of terrorism to try to keep people
Yeah.
behind you. So,
That
yeah,
said, he had an amazing weekend outside. I mean, that notwithstanding,
yeah,
he drove his heart out. Actually, like it should be
yeah,
said, he did so
yeah.
well, honestly, and he was really probably better than Charles this weekend. He was definitely faster in that part. They wouldn't let him by. Ferrari being, the
Carlos
Charles
in these
Leclerc
team
show.
orders, he asked,
He,
and they're
I
not letting him through at all.
as
I don't
far
know
as
what's
we
going on.
know, politely
Yeah,
asked only once or twice, unlike a certain
yeah.
George Russell, who also, again, George, I'm faster than Lewis. Now, Russell, I'm going to keep bringing this up every time that he is slower than Lewis, which will not be the last time.
Right.
I'm just going to say it again. George, please say less. Um, because you think you're faster than him now. And he's saying that, oh, at one time Lewis would have been that. No, you're not faster than him now either. So just please stop. But yeah, yeah, Carlos is he. I mean, yeah, he. So other than his
Yeah,
his sad poor me situation, he did a really good job. I mean, Lando did a really good job. I don't think anyone should freak out thinking that McLaren is not, this is like the Lando specialty circuit. They, I think
yeah,
it really suited. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I think down the
yeah,
line. I think great if they've gotten more back into things, and I think that's great. You could tell Lando was very very happy.
yeah.
And for people that's saying that he was snitching on Lewis, first of all, everyone does that. I just want to say, like, literally every driver does that. Then we
I
saw,
thought that was the funniest
Lew.
thing
I mean,
ever.
that was
I just
that
thought it
was
was
funny,
so funny. And when his engineer was like, "Let us know every time he does it," and all this, it was just
right?
like
He's like, I
so.
just be talking constantly.
I was just like, "Why these grown ass men are snitching on each other left and right?" This is the funniest thing I've ever watched. Like that to me is why I love watching Formula One because it's
Yeah,
just like serious
yeah,
on top of serious on top of serious, and then it'll be shit like this, like we're just
yeah,
lap after lap. They're like, he
yeah.
went out on the track and he went out. It's just like the little playground stuff is
I
so
mean,
funny to
they.
me.
I think that again, this cannot be
Oh
said
my god.
enough. These are grown men allegedly, but they behave like children all the time,
Yeah.
and it's
These frontal
entertaining
cortexes
sometimes.
are still developing.
Yeah, but even for the ones who are beyond that age or whatever, like
Yeah.
think of all the times that, I mean, like remember when Fernando was like trying to pretend that like he in the pit lane when he went like this with the
Yeah.
steering wheel, and then Toto like made fun of him,
Totally.
doing the yeah, Toto again, very
It's
parent mentality.
funny.
Even though
Yeah.
Fernando is not young enough to be his child at all,
Yeah.
where some of these other drivers are. He very very parent mentality, like, oh, okay, it's like when kids like,
Yeah.
kids will like overreact or do like or pretend like something's a big tragedy when it's really not. I
Like
mean,
cry and there's like no
exactly,
tears.
and there's like no
It's like
reason
you're
for
just
it.
yelling. Yeah.
It's yeah, so it was like, okay, yeah, yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure, sure, sure,
Yeah.
Fernando. And that's how he was like, sure, sure, Lewis. He's like
Yeah.
to drive the car.
This is what I
um
watch for. These like little comedic moments or so.
it's
You couldn't
it's
write
it's
this. It's so
fantastic.
funny.
It's
It's
so
so
good.
funny. Yeah.
It's so good. And you really have to, because again, this is another thing where like commentators often will talk about these guys like they're, these superhuman
Mhm.
superheroes, like doing this incredible thing, that they're
Mhm.
doing. Yeah, I mean, like, yes, but then there's the other side of it
Yeah.
where they act like little brats and and Karens and
I
this
love
and
it.
that.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, like
Yeah.
this is not serious. They're like delicate little divas. Like we
And you
talked
say
about this when
women are
we
too emotional to have, like, this is the
seriously.
shit that I'm just like,
Oh my
I
god.
don't want to say anything, but this is mighty funny. This is all run by men, by the way. Not a woman
Uh-huh.
in the room. And look how
Uh-huh.
every week, look at this shit every week, how
Uh-huh.
emotional they get. So
Oh
I
my
just want
god,
to throw that
we,
out
we
there.
we would just have that all, like,
I
we
just
would,
want to throw that out there.
if there were more women there, seriously, like, there would be things would be like
We need more
figured
Susie
out.
Wolves in the house. Yeah.
We would be track limits, not a problem.
Hmm.
Uh Change this circuit so that people don't die, done.
Boom.
Like, to
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm just saying, like, there- try letting more women do things, Formula One, because I'm telling you, things would be better.
More
There,
efficient, for sure.
I mean, seriously, like, we know how to get things done. We know
Yeah.
how to, without a lot of fanfare, without a lot of bother. Anyway, uh, yeah, so they really are. They're like these divas. It's like when we talked about when remember George was like complaining about the introductions in Miami because he's like, it's so hot and we don't
God.
want to be out
Yeah.
here for like, seriously. This is
Oh, poor Georgie has to be
it's
hot.
I
Uh,
mean,
to be
and
fair, it is fucking Florida and the heat and
oh
really
yeah,
does
no, it's
suck.
very hot.
And he's
But,
from an
like,
island that has sunlight for 2% of the year. So I
okay,
mean,
but this is from the
I feel
people
it.
who, like,
Yeah.
every year for Singapore post their, like,
Right.
workout videos where they're like,
Like drenched in
in
sweat.
fully dressed, and
Yeah.
they're on the bike, like, in the steam room, and they're like drenched, and they're, but
Yeah.
come on, listen, please,
Oh,
it's ridiculous.
George.
Anyway, okay, we have to get to tweet of the week, or this will never be over, because we can make fun of drivers
All
until the
day,
end
every
of
day.
time.
I
There's
love
just
it.
so much. There's so much to
It's
make
such an
fun of.
unserious sport. That's the best part about
It's extremely
it.
unserious. I mean,
So
really, like,
unserious.
it's like it's just it's
That's why I don't get people who like seriously can't decipher that most of the time people are just talking shit. It's just for fun.
yes,
Like
yes,
everything is for fun. This sport
yeah.
is a clown show half the
It
time. Like I feel like
is.
I'm
It's
watching
like,
Cirque du
I
Soleil.
mean, seriously, like, it is. It's exactly that. It's
It's
like, and it's like
funny.
everyone's, and it's like everyone, because everyone's like in on the joke, so
Yeah.
everyone kind of acts like this is all normal, but it's not.
It's not.
uh okay, but our tweet of the week came from, I don't know if it's his real name, but on Twitter it's Nick Panda, but he's at Fuel Drum, and he responded to me tweeting saying, what's going on with the Ferraris, they're so slow. And this was during, I can't remember which session this was during, but it was one of the qualifyings. I want to say, I don't know. I can't remember anymore.
One of the qualifying.
I don't know. Like, they weren't actually slow this weekend, but this must have been earlier in the weekend. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I said, I tweeted, what's going on with the Ferraris? They're so slow. And Nick, if that is your real name, he said, this question could be asked at almost any point over the past 5 years. Indeed,
It's
that is
evergreen.
correct. It was like an evergreen question.
Yeah.
Why are they so
Evergreen tweet.
slow?
Yes.
Yeah. I enjoyed that because I was like, yes, that's true. Good
Yeah.
point.
It's like, be
Yeah.
more specific, please. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
So
true though.
it's very
There's
true.
plenty of times where I've been watching like quali or even practice and I'll be like, I'll just
Yeah.
randomly be like, where's Charles? Like, and I'll look and he's like P12 or
I know.
something.
I know.
I'm like, that's so weird. I'm like, I know they had just gotten upgrades and stuff. So yeah, I've definitely yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
it happens quite a lot.
their
Yeah.
upgrades seem to be working. Now we
Yeah.
will reserve judgment, of course, like
Yes.
with everything else, because, we'll see. Like, there's also, I do sort of feel like, I mean, in general, there's this, like, tendency for, this is something I don't like from fans, where it's like people react to one race as if
Yes.
it's like this is, like so some people who are Mercedes fans are like, oh my god, that's the end of the
Yeah.
world, like this was so horrible, like
It's like, calm down,
obviously
people.
the
Yeah.
upgrades didn't work at all, that was
We need to
just a
slap
fluke.
everybody.
I mean, where's Toto when you need him?
Toto, get on Twitter and calm people down.
Toto, we need you.
Yeah.
I'm
Team
completely
LH, Mercedes team is we're
selflessly
losing it out here.
asking.
Yeah.
I'm just saying we need you to show up and be like, we know things suck this week, but just get over it. Get over it. Yeah, like everyone needs a Toto
Silverstone
in their life.
upgrades, guys. That's what they said. That's my thing. I was like, they've told us like the kind of the schedule for the upgrades and the fact that the teams that were faster than us this weekend, they had fresh upgrades at Austria.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the fact that we weren't, we didn't get enough practice sessions to set up the car.
Yeah.
I mean, you can listen any number of reasons
even
why
these
the car
upgrades
was, like,
can
slower.
only do so much. Like this
car
car is still like an evolution of last year's car, which we all know how great that was.
Yeah.
And
all this. Yeah, exactly. So
I mean,
it's just
until people, people were like, "Oh, it was so horrible," Mercedes finishing P7 and P8 this week. I'm like, listen, until we have a situation again where Lewis has to ask his engineer, "Are there points for that position?" I don't want to hear about how bad things are. When that happened, and I think it was Jeddah last season.
Yeah.
When that happened, I was like, "Ooh."
Wow.
That's when, because he had not been down, because it used to be like top 12 used to get points, I think, at one time, or top, I don't remember. They used to, or no, that's right, or it was fewer people. Anyway, whatever the
point structure was different.
When he had to ask if there's points for that will live in my mind for eternity. So until things get this bad, Lewis didn't have to ask. So for this one, he knew that at least he gets some points. Yeah. I'm okay. Yeah, I'm all right. Until that happens again, I'm all right. So hopefully that will never happen again.
Yeah, we need to have patience.
So yeah. Anyway, thank you everyone for listening. If you've gotten this far, which is pretty far, so we appreciate you if you've made it. And of course, don't forget to like I said, all the things, rate and review us, write us a lovely review if you can, like the one we read at the top of the show. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for us, if you want to be our Toto, I'm not sure. We'd have to closely inspect your qualifications. And of course, we'll need you to send some headshots and, things like that. We're very thorough here, so if you want to do that, or if you want to send us anything else, you can send us an email. I know I've gone too far. What I meant to say was that if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions,
comments, questions, or thirst traps, send them to.
Listen, I cannot be responsible for what people choose to email. So if that is what someone chooses to do, we will give it careful consideration. It will, maybe not careful, but it depends. It depends on how good it is. It's Racing Incident Pod. That's pod@gmail.com. racingincidentpod@gmail.com. Send us. I can't say anything more because now it's like it sounds like I'm soliciting.
You're done, lady.
Who knows what? I'm done.
You're done.
It's time to stop talking.
No more. We're gonna come back on next week.
Yeah. Thank you, Tasha. Everyone needs it. Maybe you're my Toto.
Toto, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna send you any risque photos, but
yeah,
I accept. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. No, I don't need any. It's okay. It's good. It's fine. Yeah. Thank you. Everyone needs a Toto in their lives. So, yeah.
Or a January Capricorn. That's what we both have in common, by the way.
Okay.
Toto Wolff's birthday is January 9th. Mine is the 1st. Lewis is the 7th. We're born leaders. That's what it is.
It's destiny. It's your destiny.
It is. So yeah. If you can't get a Toto Wolff, get a January Capricorn.
All right. Cool.
Specifically.
Cool.
Yes.
I've already got mine, so I'm all set. Yep. Good luck to the rest of you. Until next week. Bye.